some of the challenges that we faced. I can speak to that perhaps now looking back. I think one of the things that missionaries need to remember when we move into a foreign country, and I think it's impossible to avoid it totally, that we bring with us a package, the gospel, with the way we apply the gospel to daily, to practical living. I don't know if there's a way of getting around that. But I think one of the things we've learned is that the church should be, I say, should be like a chameleon, where we adapt to the culture that we live in. If we go to China, we should, the goal should be to establish a Chinese Christian church, not an American church that lives in China. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's a little hard sometimes for people who have conservative Anabaptism in their DNA.
Yeah.
A lot of our concepts, we often haven't even sat down and analyzed them, because it's just that's the way it is. But to come to a different culture and try to think with a different mind. Now, when I say this, I want to be careful, because culture is simply the way a group of people thinks and does things. And so, where there are fallen people, all cultures are fallen cultures. And to say that we're going to move into a foreign country and just adapt blindly to the culture, you can't do that either. As people in a different culture accept the gospel, the way they think changes, and culture is redeemed. And in the church, we should have a Christian culture, but it can still be Costa Rican or Chinese or U.S. or whatever, if you understand what I'm saying.
Like contextualized to, I don't know if that's the right word, but that's what comes to mind.
Yeah.
It's a Christian, how did you say that? A Christian culture, but yet also
But it's
in
also,
the right context.
right.
Or, of the area.
In the culture that we live in.
Yeah.
And that's one of the weaknesses of many of our conservative Anabaptist missions throughout the world, is because we send people for 2 years. It takes that long to learn the language well, and then after 2 years, you still don't understand the culture.
I can imagine you were probably learning pieces of the culture for many, many, many years.
Even today.
Yeah.
There's things that, expressions, the way people think. But what happens is that as we become integrated into the culture, we develop attitudes toward that culture. And they say there's 3 stages of missionaries. First stage is it's the honeymoon stage. You just you immerse yourself into the culture, and you want to be like these people, and that goes about a year. And then the next year, you wish you'd have never seen the place, because there are so many things that are different.
Yeah.
The inefficiency, you name it. And by the 3rd year, well, it's different. Not necessarily worse, not bad, it's just different. And you accept it, and this is life. And then you can begin to move on. But even then, a lot of people, by the time they return to the United States and have fulfilled their term, You know, they're returned missionaries now, but they really haven't understood where they're living and what.
You know, there's so much of in our culture though the short-term mission term. You go somewhere for a year or 6 months or 2 years even. That's just kind of baked into a lot of how we do things. I'm going to say and that might be a little oversimplified and overstated, but I don't know, maybe not. Maybe there's a place for that, but you're suggesting real effectiveness, immersion, whatever you want to say. It's not going to work if you do it that way. Is that? I don't want to put words in your mouth,
Yeah.
but you know,
I don't want to be critical of it
sure.
because God uses it, but I don't think it's nearly as effective as it could be. We started a mission here in Nicaragua, on the island of Ometepe in Lake Nicaragua. In this lake, right up in here, there's an island.
Yeah.
Our daughter lives there, and we started that way. It was very difficult to make a living there. It's very arid. It's two volcanoes, and small island, has about 50,000 people on it. But anyway, there's a small church there, and our people were going from here. We'd send people for 2 years, but the local members would tell me, you know, the reason the church here doesn't grow is because by the time we get used to one pastor, he leaves, and then we have to get another one. We have to get used to the way he does things, and then by the time we get used to him, he leaves, and you know, there's a certain amount of insecurity in the church that makes it difficult. And then there's the thing of economics. While your brothers and sisters are struggling to feed their families, we have a faucet from the United States that's supporting us.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it develops a concept of us and them. I could tell you of a case right now where after 60 years of being in a country, churches having been established, and they're still, the missionaries once a month get together to have fellowship day. It's us and them. When are we going to learn to have deep fellowship and relationships with our national brethren and find our fulfillment with our national brethren just the way we would with somebody that has the same background that we do? There are very subtle things that develop concepts that I think we need to be very conscious of and very careful about.